Oh, it's been a long time since I did these videos. So it's been 9 days. Okay, so it's gonna be the article. I've already 2 pages in. It's not that far, so I'll just continue where I was. So valuing animals as they are, whether they feel it or not. Basically, to summarize, it's about dignitarian wrongs. Dignitarian wrongs in the respect that that's beings can be disrespected, whether or not there is some sort of effect on their experiential well-being. So that's going to be most of what I can get from the whole argument. This author went through those who believe that that's not going to be the case. It went through those who do believe that you can be wrong in regards to dignitarian wrongs. When it comes to animals, some believe that animals can't be disrespected, but humans can be disrespected. Those like Martha Nussbaum do believe animals have some sort of dignity, that when you color a dog's fur with some ridiculous color, whatever it is, that you are wronging them in a dignitarian sense, even though you're not maybe they're unaware or you're not affecting their experiential well-being. There's going to be a sum up for the page 2. I could go a little bit deeper, but don't need to do that. So yeah, they're making a distinction. So preliminary remarks. This article explicitates the different ways in which we can wrong animals without impacting their experiential well-being. Welfare. I keep on confusing well-being with welfare. But before beginning, I must make 5 basic assumptions, some of which will be later defended in detail. Sentient animals have inherent worth insofar as they are vulnerable or valuable in themselves, independent of their usefulness to others. B, other things equal, beings with inherent value have dignity, which I take to be a status. Beings with inherent value have a valid claim to respectful treatment. D, to treat being with inherent value with respect to their treatment to their being with dignity, a dignified treatment. And E, to treat a being with inherent value disrespectfully is to treat the being in an undignified manner. Dignitary wrongs, on my view, essentially amount to some form of disrespectful treatment. While I could simply talk in terms of respectful treatment and respect wrongs, I use the language of dignified treatment and dignitary wrongs to remain consistent with the standard language in the discourse on dignitary harms and wrongs. Important to note is the distinction between inherent and value and dignity. Dignity is something that other things equal. Okay. Individuals with inherent value possesses. Thus is not identical to what does that mean? So, dignity is something that other things equal. What does it mean? What do you mean by other things equal? I mean, being like things that are equal to each other in regards to value. I'm confused. Individual with inherent value possesses. I'm just gonna ask, what? What does this even mean? I can't even highlight it. Why? Come on, highlight properly. I can't even highlight it. Come on. I'll take a screenshot. There's no point. Okay. Discord. Oh, sorry, not Discord. Um, Alexa GPT. What is it? Did you advocacy project? Yes, you did. What is that? What does this mean? I'm gonna import the paper itself to give it additional context. These things I want to go instantly, but sure. In this passage, Abad is drawing a philosophical distinction, inherent value, and dignity. Here is the meaning in simple terms based on the context from the paper. Definition: something like a sentient being has inherent value just by existing because it is valuable in itself, not because it's useful to anyone else. Permanent, you can never lose this. Even if you're mistreated or ignored, your inherent value remains. Example, if someone locks you in a cage, they haven't removed their inherent value as a person or animal. You are still a being that matters morally in yourself. Uh, okay, I understand. So let me sum this up. So it's being valuable for your own sake, um, and this to meet this condition of inherent value is just being a sentient being. Um, so you'll never lose your inherent value unless you stop being a sentient being forever, I assume. Um, so even if someone mistreats you, you still have your inherent value as a person or animal. Okay, understand. So what is dignity? Dignity is a status. Isn't inherent value a status? Okay. Dignity is a status, a kind of moral or social standing that beings with inherent value possess when they are treated with the respect they deserve. Changeable, unlike inherent value, dignity can be damaged, lost, or restored, depending on how one is treated. Example, when someone humiliates or degrades you, they don't remove your inherent value, sorry, worth, but they do take away your dignity. If you are later treated respectfully again, your dignity can be restored. Why Abad emphasize the difference. Ab- Abate wants to argue that all sentient animals have inherent value, but their dignity can still be violated when humans treat them disrespectfully, even if the animals don't consciously feel it. The insult or harm, being mocked, dressed up, or be used for intent. So dignity doesn't equal value. Dignity depends on how moral agents like humans treat beings that have inherent value. In short, inherent value, what a being is, intrinsic worth, dignity, the status that express or acknowledges that worth. That worth can be then goal or degraded, etc. Losing dignity doesn't mean losing worth. It means being treated in a way that denies that worth. Okay, okay, I understand. Important to know that it is a distinction between value and dignity, inherent value and dignity. Dignity is something that other things equal. Individuals with inherent value possesses, and thus is not identical to inherent value. I, in the spirit of Germany Wall Run to 2012 2013, conceive of dignity as a high ranking equal status, while others conceive of it as a value. I look at Rosen and Saul Massey 2013, or as a principle. Duell 2014. Because dignity is a status, your dignity can be reduced or altogether taken away, and it can be restored after it's taken away. Inherent value, though, is something that can never be taken away. If you confine me to a doghouse, you take away my dignity, but you do not and cannot take away my inherent value. I will always be the kind of being that is valuable in itself, even if I'm treated disrespectfully, but I do not always have dignity. Ruth Macklin, 2003, then is mistaken when she says that dignity is essentially amounts to respect for persons or their autonomy. Dignity is not a principle. It's not respectful treatment, and it is different from inherent value. It is a status that will be discussed in detail. Section 5. Three ordinary and unordinary harms. Morality is in large part about refraining from harming others and preventing harm to others. If I cause someone unnecessary harm, or if I fail to help someone who faces great harm when helping them would not require much sacrifice on my part, it would be right to say that I acted wrongly. The concept of harming and wronging then are certainly essential to the ethical deliberation, but discussions about morality demands tend to focus on what I call ordinary harms and ordinary wrongs, both of which involve either pain or suffering and or the deprivation of opportunities for satisfaction. Other things equal, someone is harmed if she is made to suffer or feel pain. We can refer to harm that hurt mentally or physically as felt harm. While felt harm are the paradigm kind of ordinary harm, we must remember that not all ordinary harm hurts. Some ordinary harms are unfelt. Mm, For instance, someone is harmed if she is denied for future opportunities for satisfaction, even if it does not cause her to suffer. Call this a harm of deprivation. The novel Room provides a paradigm example of how harm of deprivation. In the story, a young woman is kidnapped and for years is locked in a shed, which she comes to call room. During her time in captivity, the woman is raped by her kidnappers and gives birth to a son who grows up in room. As the boy grows older, the woman tells him that room and the things in it are the only things that are real. Everything else, she says, exists only on television. Captivity itself never causes the boy frustration, simply because he is unaware that he is being deprived of the important opportunities that wait outside of the room. But even if the boy is never made to hurt, even if he never desires to leave room, surely he is, in virtue of being permanently confined to the shed, harmed, and we can best categorize this harm in terms of deprivation. The boy is harmed because he is deprived of opportunities for satisfaction. Satisfactions are more pleasurable than the ones available in room. When ordinary harms occur, the experiential welfare of those who is harmed is affected either directly or indirectly. In the case of felt harm, one is directly made to be in a negative experiential state with deprivational harms. One is deprived of the opportunity to be in some positive experiential state, insofar as one's experiential welfare is lower than it could be if one were not deprived of opportunities for satisfaction. Um, One's experiential welfare is indirectly affected by deprivational harms. In this article, I draw attention to unordinary harms and unordinary wrongs, wrongs and harms that do not always affect one's experiential welfare. I refer to unordinary harms and wrongs simply as dignitary harms and dignitary wrongs. Consider a quinti, quintessential example of a dignitary wrong in the human context. Defiling a human corpse by eating them or having sex with them or painting offensive word on them. Most people have the strong intuition that defiling human corpses is wrong, and this belief is certainly plausible, but we cannot explain the fundamental wrongness of these acts by appealing to ordinary harms. When human corpses are defiled, the dead are neither caused distress nor are they deprived of opportunities for satisfaction. The dead certainly do not benefit in an experiential sense from our refusal to defile human corpses. So if defiling human corpses is wrong, what is the wrong making feature here? The answer to this question can help us understand how animals can be victims of dignitary harms and wrongs. If acts of human indignity, such as defiling human corpses, are wrong, it is either A, that they cause unfelt or unordinary harms, or B, they are wrong. But not because they cause harm. In defense of the latter approach, some argue that we can wrong without harming. Martin 2019, for instance, argued that in order to harm someone, one's experiential welfare must be affected in some way. And since as she claims, we can wrong at least some individuals without negatively impacting their experiential welfare. There are harmless wrongs. To motivate her account of harmless wrongs, Martin contends that we wrong paradigmatic humans who meet some threshold of rationality and autonomy without harming them. We mock them behind their backs or while they are unconscious. One hypothetical example she provides is of a hospital physician who mocks and spit on a patient who lies unconscious in a hospital bed. In Martin's view, the patient has been wronged, even if she never finds out she was mocked. Martin, though, insists that only paradigmatic humans can be wronged without being harmed. On her view, for a non harming action to wrong someone, the object of the action must be self aware and have a conception of and concern for social standing. She thus contends that when it comes to animals, we do not wrong by stalking and observing them. laughing at them, dressing them up in ridiculous ways, and painting their fur, unless doing so increases the likelihood that animals will suffer negative experiential consequences in the future. Martin 2019, page 89, seems to endorse a desire fulfillment account of wronging, as evident by her claim that we owe it directly to some individual X to consider their value, interest, belief, and preferences justly. She explains that the wrongness of patient mocking physician action by pointing out that the patient, along with her valid claims and preferences, was disrespected by the physician. On this desire fulfillment, it is plausible to say that the paradigmatic humans are wronged when their manifested or presumed desire are about what how they want to be treated as a humans are thwarted, even if their experiential welfare is not affected. This is a kind of wrongness. Wrongin explains the wrongness of defiling and eating human corpses by appealing to the alleged post hominis wrong done to the once owner of the bodies. Many paradigmatic humans, while alive, have a desire that their bodies be buried or cremated after they pass, and even if they do not explicitly express this, they likely have dispositions to generate desires regarding the respectful treatment of their corpse. The following human the following human corpses then toward the preference who are alive, forward looking desire, treatment. The following human corpses towards the preferences of those humans who, while they were alive, possessed the forward looking desire that their corpses be venerated in some way. Those who endorse the desire fulfillment view of wronging, such as Martin, thus might argue that while it is permissible to eat roadkill, it is, other things equal, impermissible to eat human corpses. While most humans have forward looking desires regarding the treatment of their corpses, animals have no such desires. Number five, the dignitary harm approach. Even if we can explain the wrongness of some acts of indignity in terms of thwarted preferences or desires, it is not clear why these acts do not constitute harmful wrongs. Surely we can broaden the notion of harm to acknowledge the existence of harms that do not impact one's experiential welfare. Martin herself seemed to acknowledge this possibility, yet she avers that even if the unfelt thwarting our preferences and desires cause harm to paradigmatic humans, similarly, indignity scenarios involving animals do not cause harm and thus are not wrong. After all, animals do not desire that they be treated in dignified ways. Any desires they have are allegedly connected to their experiential welfare. Thus, she insists we cannot wrong or harm animals without impacting their experiential welfare. But the desirous fulfillment account fails to explain the wrongness of eating or defiling the corpses of humans who, alive, did not possess, even in the dispositional sense, forward-looking desires or preferences regarding the disposal and treatment of their corpses. Although severely mentally disabled humans and babies do have forward-looking desires that pertain to the care of their corpses, other things equal, it still would be wrong for someone to consume their corpse. And it would be wrong to have sex with their corpses, just as it would be wrong to paint the word slut on their corpse. Eating, vandalizing, or having sex with human corpses are wrong, even if their performance does not thwart anyone's preferences or desires. Martin considers this objection from non paradigmatic, bro. Why is this? I don't even know what this means, bruh. This is embarrassing. What does non pragmatic mean? Well, first I need to know what pragmatic means. Um, Non pragmatic describes something that does not conform to a standard model or archetype. This term is used in fields like philosophy. Okay, one, two, three. There. And power. Okay, I'll read to the next one. I need to move on to something else. Busy day. Seems willingly bite the bullet. Martha considered the objection from non-paradigmatic human beings and seems willing to bite the bullet, suggesting that the only reason why it's wrong to perform degrading acts towards non-paradigmatic humans is indirect. As she puts it, we should refrain from humiliating them from our point of view because it may deeply hurt the feelings of their family, relatives, or caregivers, or because it may have harmful consequences for them or other members of their group. However, it is worth noting that she motivates her initial proposition that paradigmatic humans can be wrong without being harmed by pointing out that most people think that they can be wrong in these ways. But certainly, most people think that non paradigmatic humans too can be degraded and thus wronged without being harmed. The desire fulfillment approach encounters additional troubles when we consider the problem of adaptive, misguided, uninformed preferences of paradigmatic humans. Consider sweatshop workers. Perhaps some workers do not realize they are being exploited and prefer sweat workshops to alternatives of having no job at all. Some workers surely benefited in an experiential sense from their sweatshop jobs, as regulate or other altogether abolish work sweatshops as sometimes as something is surely wrong with the current structure, or consider the happy slave who desires the enslavement of her entire life. Imagine this person is moreover benefited in the experiential sense from slavery insofar as she has more opportunities for satisfaction as a slave than she would as a free woman. given that her master takes care of her basic needs and provides her with the comforts that she would not have had otherwise. Still, it is wrong for the slaveholder to enslave this person, and the wrongness cannot be explained in terms of thwarted preferences, given that enslavement in this case satisfies the slave's desires. A defender of fulfillment approach might then emphasize the importance of satisfying rational and fulfilling fully informed desires. On this enlightened desire satisfaction approach, morality demands that we prioritize what I call counterfactual desires one would have had if they were rational and fully informed. Thus, one might argue that if one were rational and fully informed, one would not desire to be enslaved. Martin, 2019, seem to endorse such an approach when it comes to degrading and humiliating of treatment of children, not knowing that such treatment is likely wrong, because if the child could rationally choose, they would not agree to such treatment. This enlightened desire satisfaction approach seems to endorse what I call the dignitary harm principle. An action causes that dignitary harm if the actor performs the action with a disrespectful attitude, and to the object of the action were she to be rational and fully informed, would desire not to be the object of the action, even if the action does not impact her experiential welfare. I probably need to highlight this too. Oh, where's the highlight button? There you go. But if we are willing to endorse this principle when it comes to paradigmatic humans and children, as Martin seemingly would, moral consistency demands that we adhere to it when it comes to our interaction with all beings with inherent value, humans and non-humans. To see this, consider again the happy slave. If being enslaved promotes one's experiential welfare, why is it rational to desire not to be a slave? The answer is that even happy slaves are not given their due, and it is rational for creatures to desire that they be given their due, and it is rational for creatures to desire that they be given individual that have a welfare interest in receiving their due, even if they do not desire to receive their due. One problem with Martin approaches is that it fails to acknowledge an important distinction between harms to one's experiences and harms to the subject itself. And relatedly, it fails to recognize that there are both experiential welfare and subject welfare. We, as individuals with inherent worth, are, as Reagan 1985 puts it, more than just containers of receptacles of experiences. As he compellingly argues, the inherent value of individuals is to be understood as being conceptually distinct from the intrinsic value that attaches to the experiences they have. Is an example. Their pleasures or preference. Oh my God, this stutter. Preferences, satisfaction are not being reducible to value of the latter kind, and being commensurate with these values. To say that animals can be harmed only if their experiential value is affected is to miss that animals are more than just bundles of experiences, and that because of this, animals have a separate kind of welfare that can be wrongfully harmed, their subject welfare. And one subject welfare is harmed when one is treated in undignified ways. Beings with inherent value are, other things equal, born with high status, i.e., dignity. This high status amounts to being in a state that is fit for being with inherent value. So having dignity is simply refers to being in a state in which one's valid claims are not wrongfully thwarted. And other things equal, when one is born, one is in a state in which one's valid claims are not wrongfully thwarted, and one remains in this state until there is wrongful interference. For instance, when a squirrel is born into the wild, he is born with dignity. He remains in a state fit for a squirrel, until a malicious agent comes along to violate his valid claims. When this happens, the squirrel loses part or all of his dignity. His high status is lessened or altogether taken away. Consider an analogy. Person X is born a millionaire, but just because person X is born a millionaire does not mean that person X will retain his status as a millionaire. Someone may steal person X money. Person X might gamble his money away. Relatedly, we are born with dignity, insofar as we are born in a state in which our valid claims are not wrongfully thwarted. If we live our lives without wrongful interference and without treating ourselves in undignified ways, the dignity that we are born with always remain intact, even if we endure natural harm, such as disease-related harm. But even though we are born with dignity, our dignity can, as Cataldi, Cataldi puts it, slips away. Someone may wrongfully thwart our valid claims, thereby treating us as undignified manner. In an undignified manner, we might treat ourselves in undignified manners, and when this happens, our experiential welfare may or may not be affected, but our subject welfare is harmed by indignities, because the harming of one's subject welfare involves the violation of valid claims. When one's subject welfare is harmed, one necessarily has been wronged. Individuals have valid claims to what they are due. Thus, moral agents have a justified based duty not to thwart the claims of individuals to what they are due. After all, having valid claims logically entails that other people have duties. Now, in individuals with inherent value are due treatment that is in accordance with the value that they have. Inherent value. So individuals with inherent value have valid claim against others to be treated in accordance with their inherent value, even if they do not take an interest in the fulfillment of this claim. That is, even if they do not make a claim. After all, as Frinberg points out, one might have a claim ever claiming to which one is entitled, or even without even knowing one has that claim. To understand what kind of treatment accords with the inherent value of individuals, consider what it means to have inherent value. To have inherent value is to have value in and of oneself, regardless of the usefulness to others, and regardless of whether anyone recognizes one as valuable. So to respect a creature and with inherent value, we ought to treat and view that creature as valuable as the kind of being it is. To treat individuals with inherent value as valuable as the kind of being they are, insofar at the very least not reduce them to the status of tools, resources, or commodities. To do otherwise would be to fail to acknowledge that they are not the kind of things that are resources. Moreover, to treat individuals with inherent value as valuable as the kind of beings they are is to treat them in accordance with their specific nature. To fail to do so would be fail to acknowledge that those with inherent value are valuable just as they are, regardless of whether anyone recognizes their way of being as valuable. Moreover, it is to acknowledge the unique identities of individuals with inherent value. While individuals with inherent value share something in common, they also are relatively different from one another. Insofar as they have different species specific natures and individual ways of being, since respecting beings amounts to a not using them as mere tools, commodities, or resources, to treating them in accordance with what Paul Taylor calls their own modes of existence, and individuals with inherent value have valid claims to respectful treatment. Moral agents have a duty not to treat individuals with inherent value as mere objects or objects, and a duty to treat them in accordance with their nature. Consider then the dignitary wrong principle, which is entailed by all that has been argued. Action A is a dignitary wrong if the object X has inherent value yet is viewed or treated as a tool, commodity, or consumable, or if the object of X is not treated in accordance with their subject's specific nature. Man, why is it so hard to highlight? Oh, brother. I Come on, let's go again. This is impossible. This principle explains why certain acts are wrong animals, even if they do not impact their experiential welfare. They are wrong precisely because they perform such an act. The actor fails to fulfill their duty to treat and view individuals with inherent value respectfully. So to mock an animal by poking fun at it, like spitting on a zoo animal, is a failure to fulfill one's moral duty, not to violate the animal's valid claim, not to be treated like mere objects for human entertainment, even when the mockery does not affect the animal's experiential welfare. As Diamond 2001 puts it, when we mock animals, we turn them into an opportunity for jokes, essentially reducing them to props in our show. While our experiential welfare certainly can be made better off or worse off, so too can our subject welfare. Other things equal, our experiential welfare is better off when our positive experiences increase. And it is worse off when our negative experiences increase. Likewise, our subject welfare is better off when our inherent value is acknowledged by others. And our subject welfare is worse off when this value is not acknowledged or altogether disregarded. When our dignity is lessened or stripped away, our subject welfare is harmed by agents who act wrongly. And this explains how we can both be harmed, blah, blah, blah. And how this explains how, oh my God, what is going on? And this explains how we can both harm, we can be both harmed and wronged when our experiential welfare is not affected. Okay, I'll stop there for now. It wasn't much, but I have other things to do. Unfortunately. Well, fortunately, I do. Well, I okay. I'll read through a bit just to get excited for the next episode of like this book. Let's call it episode 6, Harmless Wrongs. In the previous section, I argued that animals can be both. I'm just going to read up to the section. When their experiential welfare is not affected, I explicitly and at times implicitly defended a non-experiential based account of harm. Now, while I will argue that even if the experiential account of harm is the right account of harm, we can still explain how animals we can be wrong when their experiential welfare is not affected. Consider a paradigm wrong that harm, such as the act of maliciously stabbing someone to death. This act has two distinct aspects. First, there is the harm caused in action. I take an action to be intentionally bodily movement, as opposed to mere behavior, which usually refers to atomic or reflexive bodily movement. Intentionally stabbing another is an action that negatively affects the experiential welfare of the one who is stabbed. Thus, it causes something any plausible account of harm would characterize as harm. Oh, I gotta leave this so I can come back. But so episode 6 of this chapter, harmless wrongs, maybe a DBZ outro. In the next episode, where we talk about harmless wrongs, we'll explore what happens. There.